Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, November the 27th, 2023. Today I want to talk about Dutch politics, a subject I don't know a great deal about, but there was an election last week in which the Party for Freedom, led by Geert Wilders, did apparently extremely well. And a lot of people are worried about this. The Party for Freedom has an anti-Islamic tone. I think they've sort of suggested shutting down mosques, even some suggestions about banning a Quran. I'm not quite sure how that works. And they want to put an end to asylum seekers, or at least the volume of asylum seekers that Holland has recently been experiencing. So yes, a lot of people are very worried about this. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to look at the horoscope of Geert Wilders. Though I should say, it's been portrayed as him winning an election. But that's not really winning an election in, say, the British or the American concept of winning an election. All that's happened is that the Party for Freedom is the largest party in terms of the votes it's got. And there are lots of parties in the Netherlands, and the Party for Freedom only got 23% or 24% of the vote, less than a quarter of the vote. It's got a correspondingly small percentage of the members of parliament, so that does not equate to political power. You can say you won the election, but in politics, where you've got proportional representation, being the largest party, is not really the end of it. So anyway, I want to look at his horoscope. I don't have a time of birth for him. I also want to see if I can make sense of the Dutch horoscope. I take the horoscope for July the 26th, 1581, which was the Act of Abjuration, when the Netherlands, or parts of Netherlands, tried to declared their independence against Spain. But anyway, before I do that, I want to look at the astrology for today, the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, November the 27th, 2023. So in a way, I've already covered the main event of today, because really, the main event is the full moon. The day is dominated by this full moon. Here's the chart for today, set for New York at noon. You can see that the sun is in Sagittarius, the moon is in Gemini. So that's what we're going to be experiencing today. When you've got a full moon, it's a time of truth. It should be a time of truth when we can see the world for what it really is. All the lies and the fantasies should just disappear, and we can see the world what it is. If we open our eyes, some of us might not want to see what the world is like. It just might be too horrible. But it's not just about the world; it's about all the people we deal with. We can see people's personalities for what they are. Are they worth bothering with? Are they doing us harm? Are they doing us good? It's all there. All the information is there if we want to look for it. Now, it may be difficult to see what's going on, because another thing going on right now is a stressful aspect between Mercury in Sagittarius and Neptune. Now, I've already covered this aspect when I looked at the astrology for the week as a whole. But, Mercury square Neptune is deceptive. It's about smokescreens. It's about people lying to us. And so today we shouldn't really believe anything anyone says to us. it may not even be that they're consciously lying. They may just be exaggerating, or they may have just got their facts mixed up. So watch out. Also, we need to be careful ourselves. We could find ourselves lying or saying things on the basis of false information. So we do have to be very careful there. So is it going to be a good day? I mean, all things being equal, I think it's going to be quite a difficult day. And we're going to have to really cut through the fog. But if we can cut through the fog, it can be an enlightening day. Okay, so that's today from the perspective of the astrology. And I now, from the overall planetary positions, I now want to do my forecasts for the 12 signs. So here they are. These are my forecasts for today, which is Monday, November the 27th, 2023. Aries, stick to the facts. While it might be tempting to speculate, imagine and fantasize, it won't get you anywhere. And your explanations need to be as simple as possible. But perhaps you'll start to understand the complete stupidity of another person's point of view. You can't let them get away with it, but you also have to be polite. Taurus, there is pressure to make everything complicated, and if you're not careful, you could tie yourself up in knots trying to work out what's going on. But if you look at what's right in front of you, then you'll have no need. And by talking things through, you can give yourself and other people clarity. Gemini, the moon is moving through Gemini, your star sign. You're challenged to think for yourself and perhaps also speak for yourself. Other people might seem to be clever, but maybe that's because they're talking too much and they don't give anyone else room to speak. If you trust yourself to get it right, then I think you'll be fine. Cancer, you don't have to get involved and you don't have to exhaust yourself. Okay, there might be pressure to go against your better instincts, but it's pressure that can be ignored. And when you're doing things your way, or rather not doing things other people's way, there'll be a feeling of strength and calm. Leo, today's full moon might be challenging. On one hand, you're feeling a new confidence as the sun gathers strength in Sagittarius. On the other hand, there are people and situations that are asking questions. These are questions that matter, and you have to consider the possibility that you've made mistakes, but it's not too late to put them right. In relationships, there is a dynamic and probably healthy difference of opinion. Virgo, you think you know what you're doing, you think you know the facts, but Mercury, your ruling planet, is poorly placed. In Sagittarius, the sign of its detriment, square Neptune. The overall atmosphere is confusing and it's so easy to make mistakes. And there are people out there who just can't be trusted. Libra, it's tempting to skim the surface, dealing with pleasantries and superficial detail. But that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You need to see a broader picture where you can sense the interconnectedness of everything around you. And if you can experience a culture or a state of being that is very different from what you are used to, then so much the better. Scorpio, people say things they don't mean, but it's easy to take these people seriously, and really surface appearances count for little, and instead you should be considering people's underlying motivations. Still, it does seem that in some quarters there's a tendency to devalue the emotional side of things, and today that really would be a mistake. Sagittarius. There is a full moon across the main axis of your solar chart. You have a particular way of being, and it's not something you're prepared to compromise. Yet, the full moon forces you to see another side of life, perhaps represented by another person. This is something you need to take into account, and in the process you can start seeing the truth of the matter. Capricorn. You've got lots of things to sort out, and you feel that if there isn't order, you're not going to be able to function properly. Yet the forces of chaos are at the gates, and it might seem that at any moment they could overwhelm you. But somehow you have to accept chaos, but also organize your life, perhaps in such a way that chaos can be understood and even embraced. Aquarius. The temptation is to deal with other people on their terms, because it seems that there is no option, especially at this time of year. But if you look at things logically, then you'll realize that you don't need social distractions. You can do what you feel is right and make maximum use of your creativity. If someone wants to join you on your terms, then I suppose that's up to them. Pisces. Your impulse is to forge ahead and to make progress in the outside world. Yet today's full moon reminds you of how important it is to be grounded. So it's okay to put some of your plans on hold and to concentrate on your well-being and security. And by being properly grounded, you'll then be in a position to make effective moves over the next couple of weeks. So I'm now going to move to the I Ching. As always, I ask the question, what is Monday going to be like for people watching this video? And I threw 3 coins up in the air 6 times, and the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 28, preponderance of the great. I think that many of us are in a situation where we've simply taken on too much. This hexagram, if you look at it, it's in the middle you've got these unbroken lines which represent a really heavy load with small handles. Are we really going to be able to pick this load up without causing ourselves an injury? So we may be in a situation where it could be difficult, where we just have not got the resources to do what we need to do. And so the sensible thing to do might be to pause. Yet there is a broken line. There is a broken line at the top which does move. Now this broken line, it's a difficult broken line. There are different views on what this broken line means. One approach is to kind of almost see this broken line as being about death. It's saying, well, we plow on ahead. The water goes over our heads, and there are more important things in human life. Yes, that's true. I suppose in the great infinity of things, but that's quite a grim way of looking at it. Do we really want to go ahead, with this huge load, with this huge responsibility, and we just go on? Obviously, I'm not literally talking about dying, but the sort of equivalent of something where we're just so overwhelmed that we just disintegrate almost. The water goes over our heads. Yet another interpretation is the water does go over our heads. We're in a situation where we have taken on too much, but we keep going. Then what happens? The water goes over our heads, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's okay to be in a situation where we're completely overwhelmed. And maybe help is at hand, or it seems to be help, but is it help? And so that takes us to the second hexagram, which is coming to meet 44. Someone is very keen to get to know us. Someone, maybe in the context of the first hexagram, is very keen to help. You know, they waltz into our lives. They perhaps say that they're going to help us sort everything out for us. Um, and you know, we can be comfortable with the situation. It looks good. But there's another warning here. Is this person going to really help, or are they going to just hang on? Are they just going to sort of ingratiate themselves into our being and then end up causing problems? And putting the whole thing together, I'm thinking this is all about self-reliance. You know, we have got this really heavy load, this big problem that needs to be dealt with in our lives. And it's really tough, and it might not seem that we've got resources to deal with it. And it might be overwhelming. And yes, the way out is apparently to get someone's help. But no, seems to be a situation we have to deal with on our own. That's my interpretation of these two hexagrams together. And so, you know, what do we do? It seems obvious to get help, to accept help, but you know, I mean, imagine, you know, it feels like you're, you know, one of those big blocks that they build pyramids with. You know, you've got it. Imagine I don't know. This block is, I don't know how big they are, 10 feet by 6 feet, and it's solid stone, and you're in the middle of the street trying to push this thing down the road, and it's completely impossible. Obviously, people are going to offer to help, or they're going to ask what you're doing, but you just keep going. It's not quite as bad as that, but yeah, somehow you've got to carry on with it. And coming to meet, the thing about coming to meet is, if you look at the nuclear hexagram of coming to meet, we've got 4 unbroken lines, and this represents this hidden creativity that is within us. There's this extra reserve of creativity, that extra spark that we've got, that can allow us to sort the problem out on our own. I mean, it may not be a problem. It may be something we're trying to achieve that is really difficult. But yeah, I would suggest that overall that we try and deal with it on our own, even if help is offered. Depends on the situation, but that is something to consider. So there is, overall, looking at the day, when you look at Mercury square Neptune, it's about, you know, it's about deception. Coming to meet, 44, it's about someone who seems to be trustworthy, who's eager to be our friends, to come into our life. Mercury square Neptune, we can't believe a word they say. There's a lot of lies there. And it's a full moon, and a full moon is when we realize perhaps that some people can't be trusted. We also realize that what we're trying to achieve is really huge. It's not a trivial task. But somehow it's worthwhile continuing with it, and maybe a solution will make itself felt, but not someone just waltzing in and claiming they can sort it all out for us. Okay, so I now want to turn to the subject of Dutch politics, and I'm not convinced I'm going to be able to say anything useful about the subject. So let's see what I can do. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so top right, that is Geert Wilders. And here is his chart. I don't have a time of birth for Geert Wilders, so I just have to go with September the 6th, 1963. That's all there is. Meaning he's a Virgo. Got Sun in Virgo, got Venus in Virgo, Uranus in Virgo. In fact, he's got a conjunction between Sun, Venus, and Pluto. So, he's really into projecting power. And I suppose he takes a view that he is in a position to actually change things. Also, he has no water in his horoscope. Okay, he's got Neptune in Scorpio, but I mean, Neptune in Scorpio was, Neptune was in Scorpio throughout the 1960s. I've got Neptune in Scorpio. You might have Neptune in Scorpio. So it doesn't really mark him out as an individual. So if you've got someone who is a Virgo with no water, that might indicate a person who talks about the details, mentions the details, but doesn't really care about the emotional side of things, doesn't really care who he offends, how he offends, just saying these are the facts. I'm a Virgo, I've got no water, these are the facts, and I'm going to explain them to you like this. So that might be how his Virgo with no water is working out. Also, he has a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Aries here. I would have said that this Moon-Jupiter conjunction is fortunate. Now, we don't know exactly where his Moon is, because I don't have his time of birth, so his Moon could be anywhere between 12 Aries and 18 Aries or something like that. So he still has a conjunction between the Moon and Jupiter somewhere in there, and that makes someone lucky. It also helps with communication. Moon is a communication planet, particularly on an emotional level. It's quite impulsive. It can be a bit immature. This is a male chart, and we're talking about the Moon. Normally, men sort of tend to grow out of their moons, by the time they hit their early 20s. So that Moon Jupiter is a bit, it just says what's on his mind. That's the way it is. He's not too bothered about what people feel about it. But it must work, because as a politician, he is successful. And then this Jupiter is square his north node, north and south node. Now, the north node is often seen as where we should be going to, the south node where we're coming from. So in his case, north node in Cancer, south node in Capricorn. We don't have a house for that because we don't know his time of birth. So north node in Cancer, you could say, well, what he should be doing is, in his life, he should be focusing on, creating domestic harmony, finding a nice house to live in. That would be one way of looking at north node in Cancer. South node in Capricorn, well, yes, he's quite ambitious and in terms of business and career, but that's a past, maybe a past incarnation. He can forget about that. But there is an alternative way of looking at this. We could say, well, Cancer is about the nation. It's about where you live. It's about your clan. It's about your group. And so being a nationalist, and I would say that he is a nationalist. He's a Dutch patriot. I don't mean that. I mean it in a completely neutral sense, saying he's a Dutch patriot, where there are negative connotations of that, positive connotations, but I'm assuming he's a Dutch patriot. Believes in his country, believes in the well-being of his country. North node in Cancer, that's what he's doing. That's how he sees it. And Jupiter is square the North node. He is putting his energy and his ideals and his communication, Moon-Jupiter conjunction, into helping his country. That's how he would see it. I don't know quite the way he sees it, obviously, but South Node in Capricorn, maybe he's moving away from just obsession with just money and business and power. So the question he has to ask himself is, why is he doing what he's doing? Is it because of power, South Node in Capricorn, or is it because he really loves his country, North Node in Cancer? So we can see how Jupiter is moderating that. Jupiter is certainly very good at helping him achieve his ambitions. It's also very good at helping him make the right connections. The North Node are about connections, not just about karma. So he can be lucky in that, in terms of making connections, I suppose, to other people on the political scene as he's worked his way up. He has been, he has spent a career making his way through Dutch politics. I suppose all that stuff in Virgo. He probably had a plan. I need to do this, 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 and this, and then I will get to where I need to go. So that might be what he's doing. And as far as his ability to communicate is concerned, he does have Mercury on the Venus-Mars midpoint. There's his Mercury. It's about 21 degrees from his Mars. It's about 20 degrees from his Venus. So he's got Mercury on the Venus-Mars midpoint. Mercury is the communication planet, sort of mental communication, ideas, that kind of thing. And so Mercury on a Venus-Mars midpoint, he's a charismatic speaker. You might not think he's charismatic or looks charismatic or whatever, particularly if you're outside Holland, but clearly there are a lot of people in Holland who think he's great. He got nearly a quarter of a vote. I think 23 point something % of people voted at the Dutch election on November the 22nd, voted for his party, the Party for Freedom. So that may be his charisma coming out. Then there's also the question of how he relates to his country. Now there are several charts for Holland. The chart I have taken is this one, which is for July 26, 1581. This is when the certain provinces passed this act of abjuration. I think it was passed in The Hague, in which they basically declared their independence against Spain. Now you can see that this chart is set for August the 5th, 1581, not July the 26th, 1581. July the 26th, 1581, that was the Julian date. This program I'm using insists on converting it to the Gregorian date, but so don't worry, I have got the date right, but it is July the 26th, 1581. So that's a Dutch chart. Interesting about the Dutch chart is that the Dutch chart actually doesn't have any water in it except for Neptune in Cancer. So Geert Wilders has got no water planets except for Neptune in Scorpio. Holland has got no water planets except for Neptune in Cancer. I suppose you could say that the Dutch are always at war with water, aren't they? A lot of Holland is below the sea level. You think of dikes and the constant battle to prevent the country from being flooded. So maybe that's how this is reflected. But when I'm looking at this chart for the Netherlands, I'm really interested in how it links with Geert Wilders. What does he do to the country? So let's compare the two charts. So on the inside we've got the Netherlands chart. On the outside we've got Geert Wilders' chart. And what I want to concentrate on is his Virgo planets. He's got Pluto at 11 Virgo, Sun at 13 Virgo, Venus at 15 Virgo. And these three planets are on the Netherlands Mars. So what does that Mars mean? Mars in Virgo, what does it mean? It could be about the country's anger. Mars is about anger. It can be about anger. And so his Sun, Venus, Pluto conjunction is able, I think, to harness the country's anger. Now, there are a lot of people in Holland who I'm sure are very angry about Geert Wilders and what he's doing and the fact that he's done well. There are probably people that really hate him, want to kill him maybe. But there are a lot of people in Holland who are sympathetic with his message. He is able to harness their anger, the anger about how they see it as excessive immigration, allowing asylum seekers to stay, about the economy, how Holland, like so many other countries in Europe, has been sort of wrecked, first by COVID, then by the war in Ukraine. Then he's very skeptical about the European Union. I think he might even want to take Netherlands out of the European Union, or at least have a referendum about it. So I think what we're seeing here, if you compare his chart to the Netherlands chart, he's able to harness people's anger in his country, and that translates into votes. Venus on the country's Mars. That is a very nice connection. It's a point of attraction. So I think that's how he is one of the ways in which he is able to be successful. I want to finish by considering the full moon prior to his birth. So he was born on September the 6th, 1963. This is the full moon for September the 3rd, the full moon just before he was born, set for his place of birth, Venlo. Now, when I haven't got a time of birth, I don't have an ascendant, I don't have a midheaven. It's really difficult. But a full moon is a timed event. So why not consider the possibility that full moon is rather like a horoscope? Now, you could be saying, well, how can you do that? Because so many people are born around between the previous new or full moon and a birthday. I mean, that's just so general. How can I possibly link that to him? Well, maybe it only works for famous people. Maybe it's a situation like, Calpurnia in Julius Caesar, when she said that, when beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blaze forth the death of princes. So maybe he's the prince. He gets special treatment by the heavens. That full moon is special for him. Now, there are some interesting features about this full moon set for Venlo. Mars in Libra on the 7th. You've got Mars on the 7th. There is some anger there. And Wilders was born under the influence of this full moon, which had Mars on the 7th house cusp. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is the angular separation between the midheaven, which is the midheaven of this moon, was at 1048 Capricorn. The moon was at 1034 Pisces. So you can see the 60 degrees between the midheaven and the moon, which is, of course, and the midheaven and the sun, and the opposition of the sun. So you might say, well, 60 degrees equals 60 years. So it may not be for 60 years until the potential of this full moon comes into being. So let's do a solar arc direction of this full moon on September the 3rd. So we'll put so there's the inner chart. We put this 1963 full moon. On the outer chart is if we solar arc direct it 1 degree for a year, 2 forward to November the 22nd, 2023, which was the election at which Wilders' Party for Freedom did relatively well. And so we can see that if we direct the midheaven, the midheaven directs to 1007 Pisces. And the moon was at 1034. The full moon was at 1034 Pisces. So the midheaven exactly directs to the full moon using this method. And perhaps this is an important moment. This is the moment where the full potential of that full moon set for September the 3rd, 1963, comes into being just over 60 years later. So it's kind of, that full moon is like a time bomb. The bomb was set. Wilders was the detonator. He was being this baby born a few days later. And then we can see the timing when that full moon finally blew up. So that might suggest that this election result, although the Party for Freedom only got 23 point something % of the vote, it may be important, maybe more important than we realise. Although a lot of people are worried about it, but looking at it logically, he got less than a quarter of a vote. Is that a big quarter? Yeah, he got less than 25% of a vote. Is that a big deal? But maybe it is a big deal, and maybe that full moon on September the 3rd, 1963, and how it blew up last week is really telling us how important this election actually is. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about Holland and Geert Wilders. I hope you found that interesting, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.